So today I've got James Barley, General Manager with AMJ Campbell here out of London, Ontario, and he's on with us today to kind of have a chat about some tips for people looking to make their move as smooth as possible, right through to some general things that they're seeing in their industry, maybe some changes, maybe some technology, and really give us a sense on anything that AMJ Campbell can do to make the experience great for their clients. So welcome to the show, James. Why don't you start us off with a little bit about yourself, what got you into the moving industry, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. So I've been in the moving industry now for about 5 years. Main thing that kind of brought me in was I like problem solving and logistical challenges, and there's definitely a lot of that when it comes to moving. So I started off coming in as an operations kind of role. From that perspective, you're basically dealing a lot with the clientele on the phone, figuring out what their needs are, their wants are, their how their move's going to go, planning it out for them, and then obviously making sure that the crew's on time and giving realistic expectations of what the day is going to look like for a client. From there, I kind of progressed more into more of the general manager, branch manager type role, dealing with overseeing the different departments we have. So we are the largest moving company in Canada, and with that comes a few more departments besides just the moving. So we do large parcel home delivery. We're also doing obviously large warehousing, logistics. So a lot of different moving pieces, and now my role is more about overseeing the different department heads and making sure the overall operation is running smooth from sales to warehouse to residential commercial moves and home deliveries.
Yeah, you guys have a pretty big operation over there at AMJ, and you've been growing quite a bit in recent years in our local area. I know you've mentioned some of those kind of, was it on-demand deliveries that you're doing with some other companies, like some of the shipping that when people are shopping?
Yeah, so we do a lot of large parcel home deliveries. I kind of best way to describe it is we're kind of like the FedEx or UPS, but of anything that's really big. So this would be furniture, mattresses, kitchen cabinets, pretty much anything that's too big to fit in their trucks that they wouldn't want to handle or requires more than one person to move. That's
Yeah.
where AMJ kind of steps in. We have 29 offices across Canada, huge network for warehousing, huge network for technology, which you can dive a little deeper into later, and just how we can track orders and distribute them all across pretty much the entirety of the country.
Nice. And if there's one thing that is, I guess, your favorite thing about what you do, what is it?
I think in general, it's just going into someone's home, getting that personal connection, seeing where they're at in the process. As you can imagine, you deal with all sorts of different clientele, from some people who have moved hundreds of times to people who this is their first, and seeing what their perspective on things is and trying to make it more efficient and a lot easier and ease the stress on that whole situation, because it can definitely be a stressful move for most people. So.
Yeah, one thing we often sit around and talk about in our team meetings and reiterate amongst our real estate team is that we want the home buying, moving process to be the most like an exciting time. And as much as you think that's common sense, it's actually one of the top stressors in life. So aligning ourselves with professionals like yourself who can make this process less stressful and more enjoyable is a key thing we talk about continuously. So yeah, like you said, going in, seeing what those people are going through and helping them with their needs, extremely rewarding. So couldn't agree with
For
you more
sure.
there. Yeah. And, sorry, how long has ANJ been around in London?
In London in particular, I think we're pushing about 30 or 40 years now.
Yeah.
AMJ across Canada just had its 90th anniversary. So we've definitely been around for some time in Canada, and as you mentioned, definitely growing. So trying to keep up, and our warehouse is definitely at its limits. So we are looking to move to a larger facility if we can find one.
Yeah, yeah, it's growing city down here in London the last few years for sure. So a lot more regional moves and stuff, I imagine. The Are you noticing from your perspective any trending things in the moving industry tied in, I guess, with the housing or even the commercial market? Like, what are you seeing for our region?
Yeah, we had a lot of, I'd say COVID was definitely a weird time for us. It was probably our busiest year, believe it or not. We had tons of people moving. You saw a lot of migration patterns. So a lot
Yeah.
of people were fleeing Ontario, I call it, heading out east, out west. It's kind of gone back to what I consider more normal now. So a lot of moves are happening still to the rural areas of the city. But a lot of people maybe, they're downtown kind of area, they're kind of heading out. downtown is also thriving. So you're also getting a newer, younger generation kind of coming into downtown. But yeah, I don't say there's any in particular big flows or patterns that we're seeing now. I'm sure you probably see some different things than what I see, but yeah, it was definitely a lot more obvious in COVID times. But things are pretty much settled now in the market, as you're aware. Has definitely been a little slower the last, call it 18 months or so.
Yeah.
But I am anticipating, I'm sure you are as aware, this year is definitely going to be a big move for all of us, I would imagine.
Yeah, we're recording this in February of 2025, so we're on a couple years of really low volume of sales in the residential market, which we're poised up for a lot of that pent up demand. So, have you started seeing some calls around people thinking about their moving, getting quotes, or we'll talk about this a little bit later on how to not do everything last minute, but are people reaching out to you more now than maybe the same time last year, or does it seem pretty similar?
Yeah, if we're talking about trends, I guess that is a trend. You kind of reminded me there. Historically, moving companies, let's call it from December to February, extremely low volume, just trying to keep the guys moving, trying to keep food on the plates. I will say, for whatever reason, it's a good problem to have. December, January, we were borderline sold out most of our dates. I'd say
Yeah.
about 90% sold out for both December and January. February started slow, but I can tell you we're almost right back to 90% sold out. So uh, it seems like the moving season just keeps extending every year. This is by far our busiest winter we've had yet. And I think a lot of positive things happening with the interest rates dropping. What has happened over the last 18 months of people being stuck and solitary has kind of started now opening the floodgates, which is why I kind of mentioned I think this year is going to be the biggest boom, I should say, of not just the market, but of people going back and forth and all around.
Yeah, I think you're right there. We've seen a lot of not just the pent up demand, but the interest rates have come down quite a bit. I know there's question and uncertainty with the economy and the political scene, but there's been a lot of people for the last few years that have made do with some choices they made during a very hot market. So they've had kids, maybe they've gone through a separation or on the verge of a separation, they're relocating for work or have been called back to work. So I think we're seeing a lot of people starting that research of what's going to be a high volume year of people finally seeing a spot where their mortgage renewals are coming up, rates are a little bit more favorable, saying, okay, now's the time to make the house work for me, where a few years ago it was get whatever house you can and make it work. So yeah, I think you're right on the money there with that kind of a trend happening is as the year progresses. So um, on the commercial side, like I know you guys, like you said, you've branched out quite a bit for the last few years, and even you've talked about you guys ship a lot of Girl Guide cookies, for example. Are there any things on the commercial horizon in our region or offices that you're seeing, or?
Yeah, so in general, commercial business is probably one of our fastest growing segments as well. We've done tons of different office moves, warehousing moves. Obviously, it sounds like in general, London slash St. Thomas is starting to thrive, specifically with more of the factories and whatnot. We have obviously the Amazon facilities gone up. There's obviously talks of the upcoming, I believe, is the Volkswagen battery plant coming in, which is St. Thomas area. So there's more and more big companies coming to London, basically, setting some ground roots here and starting to really grow. And with those companies comes jobs and opportunities, and obviously people move with those places, right? So definitely growing, definitely in the right direction, and it's kind of exciting to be part of it and jumping into it.
For sure. One of the maybe not trends, but all our industries are impacted with technology, right? What new technologies have you seen I guess in the recent years that are either in your industry or to you guys specific? Anything out there that's making things a little bit different for you?
Yeah, I think a couple of different things. So, like even just from a software standpoint, our ability to plan and track and provide people with proper quotations and forms that are digitally signable, that's really improved tenfold. Our crews, they're basically all, I would say 90% of our crews now are on the road with tablets or phones, and they're able to do all the electronic signatures that way. Um, that's come a long way. The biggest actual advancement, I'd say, in regards to just like how we quote a move or how a move is understood by a client, we have this program called Yembo. Basically, it was originally created for insurance companies to go in and do videos of people's homes or disaster sites and it has AI technology available in it where we can actually use this technology to go into a home, do a walkthrough. We can even send a customer actually a digital version where we don't have to be on site. They can take a video of their home for us, uploads it to a secure cloud. From that cloud, and AI will go through, scan all the items. It's going to automatically associate a size, a weight, the amount of boxes needed for us to pack or for a client to pack. So it's really been a day and night difference from what we used to do. Walking into a home with a piece of paper and a clipboard, and you have 3 sofas, you have 2 dressers.
Yeah.
So this makes it a lot more efficient, a lot more accurate, and overall, our clients really like it. It's a nice presentation. Um, as we'll talk about later, I think one of the biggest things is it's very easy, and I do this myself. Oh yeah, I only have this much stuff, and that's how much stuff you might have. That's very noticeable and obvious when you're looking at a home. When you start opening cupboards and you realize how many boxes you have worth of stuff and how much is accumulated, it's quite a big difference, and it can obviously make a big impact on how hard it is for yourself to move it in a truck or even us.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you open one of those closets, a linen closet, how much stuff people can store in there and not even realize it. Yeah, we're very efficient in some of the designs and that in houses, and really it doesn't take too long before us as humans seem to accumulate a lot. And we've seen the self storage businesses take a big portion of that because we're out storing in our homes. So obviously, you guys have to come in and not sometimes just move what's in the house, but what someone may also have offsite needing to get across the country too.
Yeah.
So that being said, like you talked about, obviously, you do local moves. You guys during COVID saw a lot of like East Coast moves, but you guys are kind of set up to help with moves right coast to coast, right? Do you guys go beyond?
Yeah, so we basically do international, residential, cross border. Actually, just last week we shipped someone out to Australia. Um, we're affiliated with, I think it's like 300 different moving companies across the world. So obviously you may not have an AMJ in your destination, but you would have an affiliated, reputable, marketable moving company that can take care of the final process for that delivery.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a whole network. But yeah, we do cross border, we do cross country, we do obviously local, London to London or London to Windsor or wherever you might need to go. If you name it, we can probably move it, and we probably have done it. So
That being mentioned, I'm sure you get this question all the time. What's the most interesting or odd thing you've had to move or your crews had to move?
there's 2 pieces that stand out in my head. One was it was actually a taxidermy lion of all things, and it came from overseas. It was full line with mane and everything, standing on a rock. I think the whole piece was about 7 feet long and about 4 or 5 feet tall. Very interesting, beautiful piece, but you can imagine the difficulties in being able to make sure that thing is secure and you know taken care of from damage perspective.
For sure.
Awkward thing I would say would be we had a local resident actually. They had 3 large amethyst stones, and when I say large, we're talking about 7 to 8 feet tall, about 2 feet to tapering up to 1 foot wide. These stones weigh thousands of pounds, and you can imagine obviously the price tag on these things, but it always makes it interesting when you have these large, unique, heavy pieces worth a lot of money. And then, of course, you have some different challenges such as tiles with heated built-in pads in them that you don't want to break while you're moving and relocating these things. So, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so really, pretty much move anything you can think of when it
Yeah.
comes to what people have around their houses. Um, yeah, if someone's looking at making a move, obviously in my industry, they contact us. Sometimes they'll contact you first. If someone's thinking about making a move happen, what are some common tips for them? Like when should they reach out to you? How should they prepare? Yeah, any advice on to that kind of timeline and interaction with you?
Yeah, quality moving companies will sell out. So it's like any kind of service. We have a lot of resources, but there's still limited resources. So a typically good time frame to start planning or reaching out for a move would usually be that 6 to 8 week mark. So call it almost a month and a half to 2 months before your move date. Hopefully by this time you've already reached out to a quality realtor like Jeff. You already have it all set up. You know what your closing date's going to be. That side of it's all planned. But yeah, I'd probably say you can sometimes get away within that 4 week period, depending on the season as well. So as I kind of mentioned earlier, there's busy season, which is obviously spring, summer, and fall, and then there's kind of our slower season. Doesn't mean you're not going to be able to secure a move date in busy season. You might get lucky and, a date might still be open, but I'd say that 6 to 8 week mark is probably the sweet spot. Um, you can still book moves under 4 weeks, but it can get more tricky and difficult depending on what resources are required for that move as well.
Okay. Now, a common thing is people sometimes don't think about that until they have that offer in place, and things can happen pretty quick.
Yep.
But often coaching my clients to make that transition as smooth as possible. Part of that's financing. A big part of that is the moving solutions out there. So a lot of people may have not moved for a decade or longer and think, okay, I've got to pack up that truck the morning of, and it arrives at the house I'm buying the next day. Um, from my experience, that's pretty high risk. You're waiting, sitting there for closings, and you don't know what the mover's timeline is while they're sitting around waiting for keys to a house. So, do you have other tools and options available to people to make that move a lot less stressful?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, we always kind of, we try to shy clients away from a same day move. As you mentioned, key dates, you can get keys sometimes as late as 4 or 5 p.m. Some days you just don't get the keys when you're anticipated for various mortgage reasons or legalities or whatnot. We do try to obviously accommodate as best as possible. We do have different options. The best way to prevent these things in general is pre-planning. So a lot of our services we provide is when my reps are out at, doing a survey or interacting with a client, they're going to find out what day do you lose possession, what day do you gain possession, what is the actual size of your move, and what is realistically able to actually get moved in today. As you can imagine, there's some homes in general that you just can't move that much stuff in a day physically. It's just not possible. So I think, it's really pre-planning, taking the time, scheduling it out, and talking to a professional like yourself or us, and figuring out what makes the most sense to make your move smooth and not have to worry about that. But yeah, to your main question, we do have options, whether it's storage, short term, holding on the trucks, holding on the trailer. We do have vaults, which are available as well if you're going long distance. So lots of different options as far as short term storage or long term if required.
Okay. Yeah. One thing I often tell the clients too is, we're going through their house. Like you said, we have a lot of stuff in our closets, but a lot of people have collected furniture over the years. Maybe have had stuff handed down. They don't want to let it go. We often say less is more. Let people move around, see your home, see everything. Don't just shove it all in the garage. You're moving anyway. So, one approach, I don't know if it's the vault or something else you talked about, is if they want to do a partial move to declutter that house and it's offsite on a storage, that's a solution that I'd say when I was with clients 15 years ago, people didn't talk about. Maybe haul it off to a self storage, but you guys have tools available where they can bring in movers and do a partial move initially, right?
Yeah, we're seeing more and more of, especially with this home staging or even just the decluttering. We'll get called and we'll just do almost like a mini job. So sometimes it's only a crew of 2 or 3 guys. They show up, they take out any kind of unneeded boxes of content that have already been packed. Any furniture that's obviously bulky or maybe a little too flashy for certain clientele, get it out of the house so it shows better. And obviously we create a storage option for that. And it can definitely go a long way in the presentation of a home and the overall quality and appearance for the potential buyer.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have any cost or savings tips for homeowners when they're thinking about a move?
Biggest thing I'd say would be make sure that you're planning, make sure that you're taking care of, especially if it's a local move. Understand what you can do and what you shouldn't be doing. So, for example, almost any professional movers will and should be able to do disassembly of things like your kitchen tables, your beds, your dresser, nightstand, stuff like that. If there are things that you are capable of, obviously, if you get them done, you're only saving time. Most of the local moves are based on hours taken. So instead of paying an individual or a mover to go and disassemble a bed, it's usually not that hard. It's typically, 8 bolts and it's kind of good to go. But yeah, things like that can definitely help. Obviously, packing materials can get very expensive. If you're not finding them from the local LCBO and you're actually going out and buying proper boxes, uh, there's many places that sell boxes and they're not cheap. One of my big surprises in the moving industry was actually the cost of a TV carton. I couldn't believe how much a piece of cardboard costs. So
Yeah.
an average TV carton on the market is about $40. So it's quite pricey and adds up. But yeah, packing material, packing paper is very pricey. I always tell my clients, utilize your own clothes, linens, things that you already have around the house that could provide good protection for your breakables. Saves you some money when it comes to packing materials for sure.
Yeah, great tips. Or find someone else who just moved and gather all their stuff before they send it and pay for it to be gone to the dump, right? Like all that
Yeah.
packing foam and stuff we get with that furniture that you want to get rid of. Find someone who's moving. It's easier than taking it to the dump.
Well, you
And it
mentioned
saves the
too was
environment a bit too, right? So
yeah, like you were mentioning, just decluttering in general, right? I can't tell you how many times we move stuff that probably ends up in the garbage after we've already moved it. So now they've paid a mover to relocate it, whether it's time based or weight based or volume based, and now it's at destination. They finally have time to go through it, and they're just throwing it out anyway.
yeah,
So
how many times have you been to a house where they made a move 7, 10 years ago and there's still a box that they haven't opened and they're like, should we move it? Should we open it? Or is it a time capsule now?
yeah, I honestly at least once a week I'm in a house where I see old boxes from their last move completely unopened, and they moved like you said 5, 10 years ago. So it happens.
um, Now, fraud, risk, it's all out there in every industry. You guys, top professional company, what tips do you have for someone who's getting moving quotes to make sure they're not taken advantage of or succumb to one of these scams out there? Because it's been in the news on and off, but it is something that people should be aware
Yeah, there's anyone can Google moving companies. You're gonna find hundreds, like any service industry. With that, stick to the basics. So there's the Better Business Bureau. Any legitimate moving company is going to be listed on there. If they're not on there, red flags should go up. There is CAM. CAM is known as the Canadian Association of Movers. Every legitimate moving company should be registered with CAM. If they're not, red flags go up. It could be as simple as even just asking the representative who's either coming or on the phone or in your house if they know or if they're part of CAM or if they're part of the Better Business Bureau. Obviously, the most simplest thing is Google reviews. I will say be careful Google reviews. It's very easy to farm or purchase Google reviews from overseas. So make sure you read the Google reviews. You'll see a lot of typically employee names getting mentioned. That means that it's legit because the farmed ones are usually just here's 5 stars, here's 5 stars, here's 5 stars. So take your time, do your research. A company like ourselves, we actually just got ranked. So thank you, London, as London's top choice mover for back-to-back years. So any kind of accreditations like that obviously show that they're getting business from local individuals, and obviously those individuals are providing positive feedback as well. So,
nice. Any key red flags like someone should watch out for sure up front?
uh, look at the quality of how they send you an estimate. The biggest thing on top of that too is that if companies are quoting over the phone, red flags should go up. So, common sense is you and your neighbor probably have a very similar, if not the exact same size home. As you can imagine, your home versus your neighbor's can be completely different when it comes to the content, whether it's furniture or boxes that may come out of that home. I've seen a home that's a little bungalow and it has 25,000 pounds worth of goods, which is essentially a full trailer worth of stuff. I've seen also mansions where I'm going in expecting there's a lot of stuff, and we barely filled half of a straight truck worth of goods. So definitely avoid getting any companies to quote you on the phone. Companies should be willing to take the time, either A, sending a representative, doing their due diligence, getting pictures, heading out to the site, using a program like Yembo, and gathering proper information from you before providing you pricing.
No, great tips all around. Yeah, the um, really any other key tips that you have for movers or any kind of final thoughts on the moving industry as a whole that you want to share?
Movie industry definitely has a bad rap in general. I think it's like any industry. You're always going to have, the bad rep around it. It doesn't mean that everyone falls into that bucket. There are a lot of great movie companies out there. Once again, do your research. Feel free to ask questions, whether it's friends, family, or even just the representative. Any representative at a legitimate movie company is going to be able to provide resources, whether it's referrals, recommendations, you name it. But yeah, I would say movers can get a bad rap. I will also say in general, I was very confident in my abilities before I worked for a moving company. I thought, how hard can it be? There is definitely a skill involved with moving. I learned that very first on my first day actually when I went to a job site, and I thought I'm strong. I can lift furniture, and yeah, I could lift the furniture, but I had no idea how to load it. I had no idea how to pad wrap it. No idea how to protect it properly. There is a huge skill difference between a professional mover and, let's call it what it is, you or I going out there and trying to fill a U-Haul truck. So
As you're
uh,
saying this, I'm sure you get that pivot. Pivot,
Yeah.
pivot, the famous
Rotate,
phrase.
rotate. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing what those guys can do with furniture and, get it through you don't think it's going to move easily through some of these spots, and they can make it. I've also seen them been on site where they've had to make some modifications or take off a door to make it work, where some people don't think outside that box. Right. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So as we wrap up, some great points here, a little bit of talk on the industry, where it's headed as far as the residential market. It's likely to be a high volume year. So the biggest takeaway for people making a move this year: reach out, plan ahead, book your mover, because they will likely book up sooner this year than they have in the past couple. And then, be aware. There's fraud out there in the industry, like many others. Go with a reputable company. AMJ is great. They've got, as you mentioned, the awards, the recognition, the reviews. There's lots of people in our community you can talk to about them helping them with their move over the years. And not only locally, you guys help people internationally as well. So AMJ, great company. Moving industry, like all of ours, has a bit more AI integration in it, making things a little bit more consistent from the quoting side, and a few other things easier for the client, so you can focus on managing some of those bigger emotional things with the move. So I really appreciate your time, James. Couple last thoughts here is, if somebody wants to reach out to you and your team, how can they reach out for moving questions or a quote?
Yep. Phone number is always good. 519-951-9000. Obviously, we have a large website, so amjcampbell.com. Google professional moving company, or even top choice movers. We're definitely going to show up. So, yeah, just any way you want to contact us. There's lots of different ways, and Google's a magic machine these days.
Yeah, we'll share all that information below as well. So, like I said, I really appreciate your time. Any other last thoughts before we wrap it up today?
No, appreciate the opportunity, Jeff, and looking forward to this year and what the market's going to hold for everyone.
Sounds great. Okay, thanks again. Have a great day, and thank you all for joining us today. All the notes are below, and reach out to our team as well on the real estate side. We're happy to connect you with other great professionals just like James and his team at AMJ Campbell. Have a great day.